Hi. Welcome back. It's me, it's Bruce, and this is my little classroom in the forest. And you've been following along, so you know that this set of videos I like to talk about a person, I like to talk about a thing, and I like to talk about an idea. And these ideas I've been dredging them up from the field of economics because, well, I really believe that if you have a little bit of an understanding of the very basics, and the basics, remember this idea, good enough, I talked about that, how, you know, we do not all have to be Fields Medal mathematicians to go and shop for our groceries. So, good enough. We're not going to challenge any doctorate economists, that's for sure. Anyway, so I like to talk about a person, I like to talk about a thing, and this idea of an idea. Okay, so getting on with it. So the person that I'm going to talk about today, I've been kind of thinking about this for a while as I ride my bicycle. And lately I generally ride my bicycle through the forest. And what I've been thinking about is, I've been thinking about coureur de bois. So, if you happen to live in North America, if you're in the United States, and if you've ever traveled perhaps by car or by rail from Maine to San Diego, you go from Bangor, Maine to San Diego, California, and if you're traveling by car, and you're traveling with children or just in general, at a certain point someone's going to say, "Are we there yet?" Okay, now, are we there yet? And you're in a car. Car. Now, if you happen to be in Canada, imagine traveling from Cape Breton Island to Vancouver in car. If you've ever done it, great. It's kind of fun. Anyway, so coureur de bois. So coureur de bois, they traveled in very, very, very large canoes. They traveled essentially from the east coast of Canada to the Canadian Rocky Mountains by canoe, because that was the means of travel that were available to them at that time. And there's a kind of a little bit of a semi-well-known Canadian vignette, which is a short film piece, and you can look it up, and it's about Lady Wallace Simpson. And she was moving basically from England to somewhere in Canada, in the western part of Canada, and she insisted that her piano accompany her. Great. I mean, it's good to practice your piano. I like that. But the way that it was brought was with the coureur de bois, which are some French Canadians. Maybe at that time they weren't Canadians; they were simply French, and French settlers. And they would travel by canoe, essentially from one coast into the Canadian Rockies. And they imagine that it took months, practically years, and carrying whatever by canoes. And a lot of times you had to carry your canoe. And paddling up very, very, you're going upstream. So it was hard, it was challenging, it was amazing. Coureur de bois. So when I spend my time in the forest, sometimes I think about how really difficult this would be. So if you happen to be having a difficult time, think that, well, heck, at least you're not being eaten alive by insects, wearing not very warm clothing, and traveling by canoe thousands and thousands of miles, or kilometers, okay? Coureur de bois, hardcore. That's the person, the people I'm talking about today. Now, the object. Not everything in life is sexy. Not everything in life is whiz-bang, holy smoke, wow. But you know what is good in life? Is warmth. So, you want to have a warm body. Or in the summertime, you want to have a comfortable body. Cool. And one great way to do that is with a really terrific pair of socks. Okay, so I'm going to hold up these socks. Hopefully, get a good shot there. These socks are Merino wool socks. They're made by a company in the United States called WigWam, and for whatever reason, they're kind of difficult to get in Canada. And these socks are the best darn socks that I've ever discovered in my years on planet Earth. And the way I discovered them was long time ago, 13, 14 years ago, my wife bought me 2 pairs of these socks for Christmas. I started wearing them, and holy smoke, they're comfortable in the winter and your feet are toasty warm. They're comfortable in the summer and your feet are nice and comfortable and you're happy as a clam. I'm wearing these socks, and then one day I noticed that I'm still wearing these socks, and I was like, well, when did I get them? I was like, oh, 5 years ago. Then a bit of more time goes by, and I noticed that I'm still wearing these socks and they're in really good condition. When did I get them? 10 years ago. So think of that. You had a pair of socks made in the United States. They're merino wool. They're fantastic. And I managed to wear them for basically decades. Okay, so now, talked about our person, and remember we're in the forest, and there's insects, and they fly up your nose, they get in your mouth, you swallow them. What are you going to do? Okay, now on to the idea. Now remember, we've been talking about some stuff. We've been talking about this concept of human beings and how our needs and desires are always expanding. Talked about that. We talked about the entities in society. We talked about utility. We talked about the substitutions a little bit. We talked about this idea of the production possibility curve. Some people call it the production possibility frontier. Basically, it's what happens when you look in your fridge and say, well, what can I make with all this stuff that I have available to me? Or you look around you and you say, what can I do with what is at hand? And what's not at hand, well, how can I get it? And that is exciting. Okay. So there you have it. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the idea of utility, okay? The usefulness. So I talked for a minute ago or whenever, about socks, how I like to have my feet warm. So what I'm looking for is comfort. And the manner in which in this instance, that I'm getting comfort is with socks, okay? So these socks, they're what's delivering me my usefulness. Now I want to talk about a little bit about separation of the utility from the object, okay? So I talked about the courrier de bois. The courrier de bois were delivering items and people and stuff from a very far distance to a place that was very, very far away. They're going across the continent of North America. Arduous journey, was tough. And they were using what they had at hand. They were using their physical strength and perseverance and canoes. Okay, so this idea about you have the object and then you have the utility, the usefulness that object brings. Okay, now I want to separate it out. And what brought me this idea was a friend of mine, her name's Rita, and we were in a camera store one day and we were looking at cameras, and she had purchased a kind of a very, very expensive camera, and I said, it's beautiful. She goes, you mean as an object, as a thing? I said, yeah, which is different from the function that it performs. And we kind of, as a society, I think maybe gotten a little bit sideways on this kind of. The reason is because right now, say at this moment, the price of gasoline is very high. The price of diesel fuel is very high. That's great, and it's going to get higher. Okay, for sure. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but for sure it's going to be higher. Okay, so people are saying, gosh, it costs me a lot of my labor, a lot of my money to do my things, to take my car and go here, to take my car and go to the store, to take my children wherever. But let's talk about what it is that you want to do. What you want is the transportation. You want the utility, okay? You don't need the car. The car is something that's delivering you the utility. And we've gotten a little bit accustomed to when we think of doing something or achieving a level of satisfaction, the mechanism that has traditionally happened is whatever that is. That's it. So for example, transportation, people think of their private automobile. Warmth in your home, you think about turning the thermostat up, burning more gas, burning more whatever, and that really it's a little bit sideways, because what you want to do, what you want to be is warm, and what you want to be maybe in transportation is somewhere else. You don't necessarily want to ride a car, and you don't necessarily want to have in your house, you don't want to burn a whole bunch of stuff, because that's not your goal. When you turn up your thermostat or hope that your home warms up or cools down, you do not think that what I really want to be doing is burning stuff or whatever. Okay, so we want to separate the usefulness from the object and focus on what we're trying to achieve. Okay, an example of this is another example is a hair dryer. Okay, you don't want to. Nobody wants a fancy hair dryer, or maybe you do, but what you really want to have is styled dry hair. There you go. And the hair dryer is delivering that usefulness, okay, that function for you. That's it. So it's the separation of our desire from the object. Okay, and maybe we focus a little bit on objects. So, all right. So the important thing is there's a lot of important things, but this idea that we can substitute pathways to achieve our goal. Okay. Now, I had talked about this thing. I'm going to go over to this page. This page. Okay. So we have this. This is our stuff, and this is our labor, our skill, knowledge. Okay. And in here, these are all the things and services that we want. Okay. This is our production possibility curve. Okay. So you want something, you want to go somewhere, then maybe there's other ways to do it. So we talk about criteria. I mentioned criteria a few videos ago, but our criteria changes. Okay, so at one point in human history, it was acceptable to do X, and it's not acceptable to do that anymore. Perhaps you've watched the TV show Mad Men, and there's a bit of a famous scene where the Draper family, who's Betty Draper, Don Draper, and their children, they go off in their station wagon and they have a 1950s picnic. So they all eat their whatever and have sandwiches and bologna and mustard and pops and maybe a couple of rum and cokes as part of the picnic. And then it's time to go, so they all hop in the car in the driveway, and then the camera pans over and it shows a giant mess, because at that time in the 1950s it was acceptable to leave behind a giant mess. It was acceptable, once again this is portrayed in that show Mad Men, it was acceptable to physically admonish someone else's child. If you did that today, you'd be in prison. So criteria. So our criteria evolves. Okay? So when I was a child growing up, many people heated their house through coal. Then coal became furnace oil. Then 1973 rolled around and there was the OPEC oil crisis and what's called the price shock. All of a sudden the cost of gasoline, similar today, went boom, and the cost of home heating fuel went really high. So the conversations that people were having in the coffee shops, which coffee shops didn't even really exist in the 1970s, but the conversations that people were having in their gatherings were, wow, our house is cold and it's costing us a fortune. That was it. So then the conversation moved over to, how can we have a warmer house? Okay, so criteria focusing on the desire, the utility of warmth. How can we have a warmer house? Well, then all of a sudden, in the region of the world, Canada, where I lived, then there was a great emphasis placed upon the construction, on how your house is made warm. The best way to heat your house is by retaining the heat. Okay, so these windows, these single pane drafty windows, gone. Okay, these drafty walls, gone. Really, there was an effort made to improve the construction. Then what happened was the construction improved, and then there was an awareness that perhaps we can improve this, develop other ways of building houses and building dwellings that are going to achieve these goals. That's important, right? So the quality of construction went up. So for a given unit of energy, our houses became warmer. So there was less energy leaking into the world, right? And it was kind of, in a way, the region of Canada that I lived in as a child, in a way, leads the nation at the moment in this respect, because the houses that are built there, the emphasis is on utility. The emphasis is on people want, they're nice homes, they're aesthetically pleasing, they're comfortable, they're beautiful, and they are warm. By warm, I mean the building envelope is well constructed, the windows are well installed, and they're windows that do not transmit a lot of heat, so they're going to be 2 panes of glass, 3 panes of glass, this type of an idea, because the pain of paying for the furnace oil prompted this change. Okay, so now we have pain from paying for, well, energy, certain types of energy, and hopefully it's going to prompt a change, because our criteria has to evolve. Our criteria is evolving, and that is really, that's great. Okay, so this was a bit of a ramble, kind of a rant, that we have to concentrate on the thing that we want and expand our vision towards manners of delivering the usefulness, the utility, and not be as enamored with the object as we had been. Okay, so if you are driving a giant pickup truck to go to the store to pick up your quart of milk, and that giant pickup truck is spewing diesel and fumes into the air, you might want to think that, okay, there's got to be a better way, and there is. Okay, my name's Bruce. This is my classroom in the forest. I kind of went, today's been a bit of a drift, and the drift is that focus on what's important and allow our criteria to evolve. It is no longer acceptable to, in the same way it's no longer acceptable to backhand some other person's child, it is really, it's not acceptable to allow your impact on everyone else to be as severe as it is these days, or as it had been. So we have focus, moving forward. So, oh, by the way, electricity, that's really good. Oh, heat pumps, that's really good too. And insulation, that's awesome. Okay, thank you very much. My name's Bruce, Class in the Forest. I'm taking a hike. See you later.